These are the numeric releases of June 26, 2026. I have 10 albums to talk about. Let's get into it. First is Swanwriter with Melodies of Despair, out June 26th. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what I was getting into with this one. Swanwriter is a solo project out of Vancouver, created entirely by an anonymous composer known only as Coda, and Melodies of Despair is the second full-length following the 2023 debut album, There Is Darkness. This is some dark progressive metal built around gothic horror storytelling. There are classical piano influences and nearly an hour of interconnected narrative compositions. It's not exactly my usual Friday afternoon listening, but I was genuinely surprised by this. Actually, I was really surprised. The album moves through a sequence of horror stories. There's a track inspired by Elizabeth Bathory, one portraying a consciousness trapped inside a painting, another exploring the experience of being lost inside your own mind, and the closing piece is called Phobia, and it apparently ends unresolved and suspended rather than offering any clean conclusion. The whole thing is designed to be listened to in one sitting, start to finish, and you can hear that intention in the way it is constructed. The pacing is cinematic, the mood is consistent, and the transitions between fragile acoustic passages and dense progressive metal arrangements feel genuinely purposeful. It's atmospheric, unsettling, and beautifully dark. Honestly, if you're looking for something to soundtrack your Halloween playlist, you could basically start searching right now. This is it. It's perfect spooky season music, even in June. I went into this with no expectations, and I came out thoroughly impressed. Melodies of Despair gets a 9 out of 10 for me. Next is Outshine with Truthsayer, out June 26th on Eclipse Records. Outshine are a dark alternative metal band from Gothenburg, Sweden, founded back in 1996 by vocalist Jimmy Bollman as a studio project and eventually grew into a full live band by 2002. And they've clearly lived a life since then. 8 U.S. tours between 2005 and 2023, 2 European tours with Paradise Lost, and over 300 shows worldwide. And somewhere along the way, there was a lawsuit with the Swedish tax authorities and what the press release casually describes as murder threats and trials concerning lost property, which is quite the biographies. So these are not people who have been sitting still. Truthsayer is the new album and the first with Eclipse Records. The sound they're going for is dark alternative metal built around haunted keyboards, heavy guitar work, hypnotic vocals, and a rhythmic pocket that apparently has a bit of a funk edge underneath all that gloom. I had this one as a promo, and the attached press release described it as groove metal gone rogue and reanimated into a melancholy black shadow, which is the kind of description that either makes you immediately want to hear it or immediately want to walk away, depending on your personal preference. For me, it clicked. The whole thing reminded me of something like Joy Division, the same brooding atmospheric darkness and a sense of emotional weight, but with a noticeably harder metal edge running underneath it. That's a combination I can get behind. Truthsayer gets 8 out of 10 from me. Next is Prime Creation with Souls of the Fallen, out June 26th on Roar, a division of Reigning Phoenix Music. Prime Creation are a Swedish melodic metal band formed in 2015, rising from the ashes of power metal act More to Fade. They've been quietly building a solid catalog since then, a self-titled debut in 2016, Tears of Rage in 2016, and Tell Freedom I Said Hello in 2023, which apparently landed well worldwide. Along the way, they've opened for Masterplan, played festivals alongside Europe and Wasp, and toured the Baltics and Spain. Not a band that's been standing still. Souls of the Fallen is their 4th album, and first with Roar, and the sound they occupy is well-worn Swedish melodic metal territory. It's power metal energy, traditional heavy metal weight, and melodic hard rock hooks blended into something polished and accessible. Vocalist S.I. England fronts a tight lineup of experienced musicians who clearly know their way around the genre. Now, my honest take is it's not bad at all. There's enough variety in there between the power metal moments, the heavy riffs, and the melodic hard rock sensibility to keep things moving, and the songwriting is solid. But one gripe is the production is almost a little too clean and modern for my taste. It's very polished, very processed, and I personally tend to prefer something a bit more grit and organic, but it's not a deal breaker for me, just a preference. Souls of the Fallen gets 7.5 out of 10 for me. Next is Phantom with Not Midnight Yet. Out on High Roller Records, Phantom are a speed and thrash metal band out of Guadalajara, Mexico, led by mastermind JC Garcia, and this is their third full length. The album was recorded and mixed with Hector Northern Ibarra at Netron Studios in Guadalajara and mastered by Patrick W. Engel at Temple of Disharmony in Germany. And crucially, the production has that raw, imperfect quality that this kind of old school metal genuinely benefits from. It doesn't sound overproduced or sanitized, and that works in their favor here. Conceptually, the band lives in vampire and gothic horror territory. It's dark fantasy, ancient folklore, Castlevania, but JC is quick to point out that most of the songs carry personal double meanings underneath the horror imagery, with tracks about heartbreak, personal struggle, and unresolved pain hiding just beneath the surface of all the bat hordes and mausoleums. And this is where the album really won me over, because Phantom clearly understand that straight speed and thrash metal can start to blur together if you're not careful, and they've gone out of their way to break that up. The church organ passages that appear throughout the record are a real highlight. They're creepy, atmospheric, almost liturgical, and they give the whole thing a distinctive identity that sets it apart immediately. There are classical guitar touches, there are progressive moments like the emotionally rich The Pale Remains of Time, adding real texture and variety across the runtime. Tracks like Hordes of Bats and Out of the Mausoleum deliver the relentless speed you expect, while Dracula's Curse and the title track lean into meatier mid-tempo dynamics. The closing track echoes from the fights, apparently sends you out full throttle, which is exactly where you want to end. A really strong record. Not Midnight Yet gets 8.5 out of 10 from me. Next is Azels Mountain with Echa Krwi, out on Pagan Records. Azels Mountain are a Polish black metal project formed in 2013. This is their third album, following Gora Mackenzie, I'm probably mispronouncing that, in 2016, and Vyshki Sen in 2019. They've been building a reputation in the Polish underground for a sound that balances raw black metal aggression with hypnotic, ritualistic atmosphere and melodic depth. And Echa Krwi apparently takes a step further. I've always had a soft spot for Polish black metal, and I think the reason is exactly what this album demonstrates. Bands from Poland tend to bring something culturally specific and musically layered to the genre that stops it from becoming the pure wall of noise, blast beats, and screaming of typical black metal. Echa Krwi draws heavily from classic Polish music, literature, and the spiritual atmosphere embedded in the country's artistic heritage, channeling themes of memory, blood, sacrifice, and ancestral identity into something that feels genuinely rooted rather than generic. The result has that distinctly Polish character, melancholy, pride, longing, and existential weight all running through the compositions simultaneously, and crucially, the music backs that ambitious up. There's some really nice melodic lead guitar moments scattered throughout the album that give it breathing room and emotional resonance, and the short acoustic breaks in texture and contrast without disrupting the overall atmosphere. It's the kind of record that rewards attention rather than just bludgeoning you into submission. Production was handled at M23 Studio and mixing and mastering by Satanic Audio, which has a pretty weird name, and the band is heading into Gotham Festival in Slovakia later this summer. Echa Krwi gets 8 out of 10 from me. Next is Nargaroth with Apocalyptic Steel, out June 26, 2026. Nargaroth is the solo project of Renee Ash-Wagner, forged in Saxony back in 1996, and this one has quite the backstory. The album was actually tracked in a single weekend at Trident Studios in California back in September 2014, then promptly forgotten on a hard drive while other projects took priority. Drums were eventually re-recorded in Las Vegas. Vocals and mixing finished at Amp Studios in Duisburg, Germany, and 12 years after those original sessions, the album finally sees the light of day. As far as the origin stories go, it's a pretty wild one. The sound is raw, direct, and unadorned. 9 tracks influenced by Old Judas Priest, Accept, Deicide, and Obituary, recorded fast and finished dirty. Mostly sits comfortably in Norwegian black metal territory, which is interesting for a German act, though there's a certain campiness running through the record that keeps things from feeling too grim and serious. And I mean that in an entertaining way. There's a track called I Drink Alone, which is not, and I want to be clear, a George Thorogood cover, though I kind of wish it was. And there's Metal Heart, which is not an accept cover despite the name, because it's one word, and it more leans into blackened metal territory than you might expect. And then there's Dresden, which breaks things up with clean vocals and sets a little apart from the rest of the album tonally. An interesting moment on an otherwise pretty straightforward record. Not bad at all, not essential either. Apocalyptic Steel gets 7 out of 10 for me. Next is Masterplan with Metamorphosis, out June 26th on Frontiers Music SRL. Masterplan were founded back in 2001 by Roland Grappow, guitarist and ex-Halloween, and drummer Uli Kusch. And if you're a Halloween fan, that connection alone is probably enough to at least get you curious. The band built a solid reputation through the early to mid-2000s with albums like their self-titled debut and Aeronautics, and went through a line of changes and a long period of inactivity. Metamorphosis is their 7th studio album and first record of original material in nearly 9 years, arriving alongside a new deal with Frontiers. Now, I'll be upfront. Haven't spent much time with Masterplan before this, but the Halloween connection was enough to pull me in, and I did enjoy it. Grappow has described the record as a more direct, heavy, and aggressive than previous efforts, with fewer progressive detours, and that comes through. There are chunky riffs, atmospheric keyboards, powerful vocals, and the kind of epic melodic power metal hooks the genre runs on. The one thing I kept coming back to, though, and I can't help it, is that Jordan Land used to front the band, and Jordan Land is one of the great voices in melodic metal. Current vocalist Rick Altsey is genuinely good, but don't get me wrong, he absolutely does the job, but knowing what this band sounded like with Jordan behind the microphone makes it not hard to wonder. It's a solid album, enjoyable listen. I didn't quite wow me, but Metamorphosis gets 7.5 out of 10. Next is Amberian Dawn with Temptation's Gates, out June 26th on Napalm Records. Amberian Dawn are a Finnish symphonic metal band formed in Helsinki, led by multi-instrumentalist and main songwriter Thomas Sapala. This is their 11th studio album, released fittingly right around their 20th anniversary as a band. Also marks the debut of new British vocalist Nicole Willerton, who steps in following the departure of Capri Virkunen. Big shoes to fill, new chapter, new beginning, all that. And I'll be honest, it was a pleasant surprise for me. I wasn't quite sure what to expect going in, but Temptation's Gates delivered in a big way. What struck me most is how well balanced the whole thing is. You've got the operatic vocals, the grand keyboards, orchestral arrangements, melodic guitar work, all the hallmarks of the genre. But there are also real riffs in here and some serious weight behind them. And the drumming is relentless in the best possible way, with fast-paced double bass drumming and lots of the heavier tracks. That really sounds great. And the harsh vocals pop up occasionally as well, used sparingly and purposefully, rather than just thrown in for the sake of it, which is probably the right call. Willerton herself is a genuine revelation on the record, powerful, versatile, and emotionally expressive, capable of sounding ethereal one moment and aggressive the next. The title track was apparently inspired by the Baldaires Les Fleurs du Mal, which sets a tone for lyrics that explore inner desire, spiritual connection, and darker philosophical territory. Early reviews have been glowing, and I can hear why. Temptation's Gate gets 8.5 out of 10 from me. Next is Speedslut with Cimbrian Rites, out June 26 on Listenable Records. Speedslut are a quartet from Aalborg in northern Jutland, Denmark, formed in 2023. This is their debut full-length following last year's Ferocity of Steel EP. The name alone tells you roughly what you're getting into, and the music absolutely follows through on that promise. The concept behind the album is actually pretty interesting. The title references the Cimbri, an ancient Germanic tribe from the Jutland region who famously invaded the Roman Empire, and the band uses that ancestral theme of war and glory as a lens to also look at the modern industrial decay of their home region. Barbaric past meets toxic present. It's a neat idea, gives the whole thing a bit more identity rather than your average black and speed metal record. Now, I'll draw a comparison to Phantom, which I talked about earlier. Both bands are operating in a similar raw, old-school territory, but where Phantom added church organs and acoustic interludes and atmospheric touches to break things up, Speedslut takes the opposite approach entirely, completely straight to the point, 35 minutes, no detours, no embellishments, no frills, just blazing, blackened thrash riffs, blitzkrieg drugging, scathing vocals, and blazing guitar solos coming at you from every direction. Raw, dirty production, it prioritizes energy over polish, exactly as it should for this kind of record. If Phantom is the band that adds extra seasoning, Speedslut is the band that just hands you the raw steak and walks away. For fans of Midnight, Early Bathory, or Venom, who want their metal delivered fast and without ceremony, this one is good. Cimbrian Rites gets 8 out of 10 from me. Next is Monument of Misanthropy with Washington State Charm, out June 26 on Listable Records. Monument of Misanthropy are an Austrian brutal death metal band with a very specific niche. Concept albums built around real-life serial killers. They previously covered Jack Unterweger and Ed Kemper, and this time around the subject is Ted Bundy, which is about as high profile as serial killer as subject matter gets. The title is a dark play on Bundy's infamous charm and charisma, the very qualities he used to lure victims, particularly in Washington State, and the album traces a story from troubled childhood all the way through his murder spree across multiple states and his eventual execution by electric chair. Now, pulling off a coherent narrative concept, the album is challenging enough in most genres. Doing it in brutal death metal, where the vocals are largely indecipherable guttural attacks and the music is a wall of blast beats and technical riffing, is a genuinely interesting challenge, and from what I can hear, they've actually pulled it off. Interview samples and atmospheric elements are woven throughout to reinforce the narrative, giving the whole thing a disturbing sonic biography quality that keeps the concept grounded, even when the music is at its most ferocious. And this is where it gets interesting. The band has pushed forward more melody, catchy hooks, and some deathcore and tech death influence on the record, making it noticeably more accessible than their earlier work. I know that word makes some death metal purists uncomfortable, but honestly, I think it works in the album's favor here. The melodic twin guitar solos and heavy syncopated grooves give you something to grab onto without softening the brutality. Ambitious, technically impressive, and surprisingly engaging, Washington State Charity gets 8 out of 10 from me. And that is it. New metal releases for June 26th. Check out last week's episode. It should be appearing on the screen right now. Thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please like the video and subscribe and all that good stuff. And whatever, watch it, check out the playlist, and I will see you in the next one.